Welcome to Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. Today, it's my absolute privilege to have Susan Fochs on with us. Susan is a self-proclaimed nonprofit aficionado and coffee connoisseur. Susan originally hails from Door County, Wisconsin, with a bachelor's in human services leadership and business admin, as well as a master's in public policy. At 18, Susan founded the nonprofit organization Operation Not Alone, which is dedicated to serving military members and veterans under an umbrella of mental health initiatives. She still runs the organization almost 10 years later with a dedicated team of 6 people, with a 6-figure valuation, and received national recognition for the global impact. Around the same time of launching her own nonprofit, she was highly involved with the Miss America organization, holding 3 local titles through the Miss Wisconsin Scholarship Organization. She earned recognition from the Miss America organization with her charity work and winning the Jean Bartel Scholarship for military awareness on their national stage. Susan currently works as the director of sales for Headbands of Hope, a one-for-one company that donates headbands to children battling illnesses. To date, they've donated over 1.5 million headbands to every children's hospital in the U.S. and 19 other countries. In her free time, you'll find Susan hiking, kayaking, sipping coffee, or hanging with some adorable rescue pets. Welcome, Susan. It's hard to believe you have any free time based on that bio.
I really don't. I actually was complaining about that I think just yesterday.
Yeah,
Thank you so
yeah.
much for having me, Jack. It's been a while since we chatted.
It has. It has. And, I'm kind of talking to a bunch of influence leaders around the ideas of nonprofits.
Hmm.
And the goal of this podcast is talking about tales from the trenches, some like real experiences that are there. You have a pretty unique experience in starting a nonprofit. So can you just kind of walk me through it? 18 years old, you probably weren't, well versed on all the intricacies, and you learned probably through the school of hard knocks. So if you could share
Yeah.
with me your experience, that would be amazing.
Oh, very much so. I definitely had no idea what I was doing, and if I went back to do it now, I would probably if I could see myself doing it at a bird's eye view, I would probably cringe from start to finish. But what was really interesting, and I actually found it to be a benefit that I was a college student at the time, was that their college campuses are rife with resources and also other expert thought leaders. So I went to a lot of professors, like not even my own, but people I knew that would be good for certain things. Like I wasn't taking accounting at the time, but I knew a really good accounting professor in the business college. So I would go to a lot of professors during their office hours, and I was like, hey, you don't know me, but if you have a couple minutes, can I just talk to you about this thing and get your advice? So I did that with business professors, and then also human services, because that was a lot of nonprofit social work. But then something else that was kind of funny and interesting was there's a lot of legal stuff. Sometimes you're going to need an attorney.
Yes.
There was a lawyer on the campus that I went to at UW Oshkosh, where he had a flat rate. He sat in the in the student union, and he had a flat rate of $5 for a visit. It could only be 30 minutes,
Wow.
but it was a $5 visit. Now, normally he dealt with things I don't know, roommate and landlord issues, but he was still a
Right.
$5 attorney that was on the campus. So I was like, I'm going to use that to my advantage. So there was a lot
Wow.
of, it was a lot of hard knocks, and learning things like LegalZoom, and just walking up to a lot of people going, hey, I think I'm going to do this thing, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you teach me something that you know about this? And I did kind of a lot of data collection and interview collection for a long
Sure.
time while I made that process. So it was interesting to also kind of look up and see how many weird resources were available in creating such a strange thing.
So what made you kind of decide to do your own nonprofit versus aligning yourself with an existing nonprofit?
Well, it was kind of funny just because, so the year before I had started in the Miss America organization, and that ties in because they always have a community service related aspect to it. And so when I started it, you have to pick a platform. I think now they call it a social impact initiative, but you had to pick something that you would run on and be an advocate for. And I knew
Right.
mine was going to be something about veterans and maybe disabled veterans because my father is a fully disabled Marine Corps veteran. And so I did that for like a year. And when I went to college and I just kept talking about all these different things and these different ideas and stuff I wanted to do for these veterans and all these different things, I had people look at me that said, they're like, it sounds like you have all these other ideas that like kind of are like, existing nonprofits, but not really. You should
Right.
just start your own because it's similar, but it's just offbeat enough that it has enough merit to stand on its own. And that's when I was like, no, I was like, I'm a teenager. That's absurd. But we did it. Here we are. And I can't believe it's 10 years later for that. So it was really that I toyed with it for like a year. And then I just had enough people that were like, just shut up and go make your own. Like, you're not going to change some of these really large organizations. Just go do your own thing. And I was like, okay, we'll try.
Wow. And Susan, how long did it take you to kind of get your official papers as a registered nonprofit?
I would a couple of months. Also because when I did it, so it was 2013. So I started well, it was January of 2013. So I started the process in probably October of 2012. And at that point, I mean, the 501c3 application was just a lot longer than it is now, and there was not the easy like online form to it. It was the really long paper version, so it took me a few months to put all of that
Right.
together, which was fine. I mean, because we got it done.
You know, a lot of the talk that I've been having on this podcast is around fundraising and canvassing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you started out, you had to get some sort of seed funding and some sort of money in the coffers.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how you went about doing that with having no experience.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, and I think this is just a large part of startups. Like I don't come from an affluent family. Like my parents weren't able to be like, here's the startup money you need. At minimum, just that 501c3 application is pretty expensive to file. At least in the U.S. it is. And like it was a couple $100s, especially back when I did it. And so honestly, like I couldn't get funding for it, and especially like looking the way that I do, like I'm a very like, I've got big blonde hair and like round cheeks, and and again, I was a teenager at that point, so no one took me seriously. They were like, "That sounds like a fun hobby. Go away, kid." So I did everything myself. I was a waitress at like a really popular pizza restaurant, so I did pretty well with tips. But it was very, when you talk about the school of hard knocks, it was very much also just my own funding going into it, and it stayed that way until I started doing really small fundraisers. And I'm talking about some of those like dining to donate fundraisers where like a restaurant chain will donate 10% back or something, and so I started scraping it little by little back. But yeah, everything was out of my pocket for a while, just with like some waitressing money. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. And did you get to the point where you were asking individuals for donations, or was it more on the event side?
I would say it was more on the event side because at that point I was so bashful about asking for donations. So, or like maybe I would go to an event and I would wear like the t-shirt, or I would try, so I was in a sorority in college, so I would do that. And sometimes I would try to have like the whole sorority maybe do like a volunteer event with me. And if people offered, then I was like, oh, that's so nice of you. Thank you. They would hand me like 20 bucks or something. But yeah, I was way too
Sure.
bashful back then to walk up to someone and be like, would you like to make a donation to my organization? So I think that's also, like Facebook was a lot easier to use back then in that regard, because I could put that out there without having to really like, you know, put me in that
Yeah.
hot seat.
Right.
It didn't have, no, Facebook did not have the fundraising tools back then that it had now. So it was like people writing, and it sounds funny because it was only 10 years ago, but it was people writing me like actual checks or handing me cash.
Right.
Even just easy online transfers of money was not really as easy in 2013, 2014. So yeah, it definitely, I was not a good fundraiser in the beginning.
Susan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's probably been a little over a year since we last chatted, but it almost seems like yesterday. You are such an easy person to talk to. If folks wanted to get hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
Oh yeah, honestly, I mean, social media is a great way. Like, find me on well, quite frankly, I would say Instagram. My personal is either my cat is in the middle of all these. My personal Instagram is just at Susan Fochs, so Fochs. Or you can find me for Operation Alone, so just at Operation Alone. Otherwise, I'm always free to give out my email, which is just Susan at operationalone.net.
Amazing. Susan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Jack. This was an honor.
Hi, folks. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button right here.